G'day everyone, Christian Bishop here. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Alright, so what we do, we normally got a schedule to work on and we try and plan accordingly, but the last couple of weeks we've been getting the same question over and over, and I actually thought I'll squeeze this talk in with the rest of the program. So today I want to feature this little Muppet. So this is an Aurora house snake, and what's fascinating about them is it's an indigenous snake in South Africa, but they're probably one of the best indigenous looking snakes we've got. Super shy little snakes. Funny enough, not as easy to keep as people think, to keep them. And that's going to bring us to today's talk, and we're going to talk about humidity. People have got a complete misconception about humidity. So before we carry on with humidity, just a side note. Okay, guys, so these guys, you do need a permit except in KwaZulu-Natal to keep these guys. So if you don't have a permit for them, you can't keep them. You can't get one out of your garden and now put it in an enclosure and think it's going to work out for you. They can land you in some pretty hot water. So guys, if you do acquire Aurora house snakes, just make sure they're on permit, please. Luckily in the Western Cape, unluckily, we've got to have a permit for everything, from a corn snake all the way to these guys. But the blessing in that is, if I do breed them, I can actually supply the guys up in Gauteng with Aurora on a permit. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's jump right in with humidity. Humidity is something that I think, number one, we overthink it completely. Humidity is species dependent. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you your corn snake needs to be kept at 60% humidity and that your ball python needs to be kept at 75 and that your green tree python needs to be kept at 90. So the least you can do is get your general guideline on your species. And just looking at the area where they're from, if we look at South Africa and something comes from the Natal coast, I will immediately know that that is going to be a high humidity snake. If it's a species that comes from the Karoo area, I know the humidity is going to be extremely low on them. And also where you live plays a major factor in humidity. The best thing about where I live on the coast is I idle at 60% humidity on any given day. In the counter on that, the bad side is I can't keep extreme arid snakes. Horned adders, I struggle with horned adders. I struggle with the dwarf beaters that requires extremely arid. So I've got to go out of my way to make the enclosures perfect for them. But the rest of the snakes we've got here, that's one of the reasons we've got 4 facilities. So we've got the facility down in Cape Town, the one in Knysna, the one in Fourways, and down the one in Limpopo. And all 4 facilities plays a role in the sense of species dependent. Some of the facilities does have the same snakes. For example, we all have black-headed pythons throughout the range, but certain facilities got more green tree pythons because it's high humidity, and some facilities got more arid species like the dwarf beaters. So we just assign it that way, but it's not always possible to, as a private keeper, to have 4 facilities. That it makes it difficult. So let's talk about number one, controlling humidity. The biggest factor is these guys, water bowls. You can see the size difference we've got here. You can go, I'm using plastic because it's just going to be easier for comparison. But I mean, we go fancy with these artificial rock water bowls. But once again, when you purchase them, you get them in a small, medium, large, extra large, double XL. And the same with these. So this will give you a complete different humidity level than this will do at the end of the day, given it's the same size enclosure. So we've got an enclosure, like we've got the back here, we've got the 1.2s that we keep our womas and Angolan pythons in, is if I take the Angolans are pretty arid little species, but they do well on that 60% humidity range. 60% humidity sounds high. In snake terms, it's actually not. The lowest I'll go on humidity, even on extreme arid species, is on the 40-50% mark. 60% mark is actually the most common range for all the snakes out there. And you can just fine tune it. So for these guys, I'll go small. But if I add something in there, like for example, a ball python, same setup, I'll just do this. So because ball pythons, although they're families of the Angolans, they do require different humidity levels. Angolans are a lot more a desert-orientated species that you find in pockets around waterholes in the desert, and with ball pythons, they're more of a subtropical type of species. So that's the biggest thing. Water bowls is your biggest thing on which way do you want to go, in the sense of high humidity, low humidity, and also the placement of your water bowl. So if I put a small water bowl on the cold side over here, my humidity is going to stay low because I don't have water evaporation and I don't have a lot of area that will evaporate. But if I take it and I put it on the hot side, I've got a bigger surface area, more evaporation will occur, and I will actually fill up the enclosure with more humidity. So that is how you control humidity, the easiest and the fastest way to control it. But let's go into humidity. This is where, and also on controlling humidity, and we're going to go into that, is the choice of substrate that you use. Substrate plays a major role in the sense of the same substrate will give you two different effects. I can put cocoa husk in here, and I just need to keep it dry. But if I put cocoa husk in here and I give it a misting once a week, it's going to maintain a very high humidity. And misting is, there's a misconception. I get people telling me, but I mist the enclosure every second day. Unless you're keeping emerald tree boas or green tree pythons or Amazon tree boas or some of your boreal vipers, I would not be misting every second day. And that brings us right onto the next point that I want to touch, is people don't understand the concept between humidity and moisture with the ventilation ratios. So an arid enclosure and a tropical enclosure will get away with the same ventilation. So minimum ventilation is ventilation from the front going out the back, or like in these cases, in the old enclosures, from side to side. The new reticulates will be designed, and that's for a reason for stackability. So it goes in from the front, goes out the back, vice versa. You need to have humidity. If you don't have humidity, you're creating dormant air. Dormant air in a high humidity environment is going to start creating a health problem, in the sense of you creating a breeding ground for bacteria. You're going to sit with fungus, and it's just going to get out of hand, and that comes with a world of problems. So humidity is when you get out of the shower in the towel, 20 minutes later on the coast, you're already sweating. It's like me in the reptile rooms, because humidity is high and there is it's a controlled heat in here. You'll see I'll start my chalk fresh out, and about halfway through, the sweat starts dripping. The reason is because it's humid in here. As you walk in, you don't immediately feel it. But after about spending 10-15 minutes in here, or if you're working on these enclosures and you've got one or two of these muppets striking at you, your adrenaline stress levels go up, that sweat comes pouring down. And that's what humidity does. But yet, there's no moisture in the room. It's only humidity. And what I mean by moisture, I mean wet. A lot of people try and overcompensate on humidity, and they end up with wet paper towels, wet cocoa husk, wet moss. The second you've got wet, you're doing it wrong. If a snake, take yourself for example, if I stay in a humid environment day in, day out, I'll be perfectly fine. But put me in a wet bath with 2 inches of water and let me lay there for 2 days, I'm going to start developing skin problems. The same with the snakes. What you're creating now is, once again, a breeding ground for bacteria, and you're going to end up, I'll say the biggest cause, the biggest problem you're going to get from keeping it too wet is you're going to get something like we call scale rot. And how do you know you're doing it right and doing it wrong? Okay, let your snake tell you with their sheddings. If a snake sheds out perfectly every single time, you are doing it right. We tend to look at even arid species we need to keep it drier. If they're shedding in one full piece, that's indication that my levels are right. That sweat comes pouring down, and that's what humidity does. But yet, there's no moisture in the room. It's only humidity. And what I mean by moisture, I mean wet. A lot of people try and overcompensate on humidity, and they end up with wet paper towels, wet cocoa husk, wet moss. The second you've got wet, you're doing it wrong. If a snake, take yourself for example, if I stay in a humid environment day in, day out, I'll be perfectly fine. But put me in a wet bath with 2 inches of water and let me lay there for 2 days, I'm going to start developing skin problems. The same with the snakes. What you're creating now is, once again, a breeding ground for bacteria, and you're going to end up, I'll say the biggest cause, the biggest problem you're going to get from keeping it too wet is you're going to get something like we call scale rot. And how do you know you're doing it right and doing it wrong? Okay, let your snake tell you with their sheddings. If a snake sheds out perfectly every single time, you are doing it right. It just gets more difficult with your high-end tropical species, your high-maintenance tropical species. That's what I mean by that. So just please make sure that you don't compromise on ventilation. And once again, the water bowls, that is what's going to determine humidity, and then the substrate that can handle the humidity. So when I say substrate, is I can actually use this enclosure for carpet python running at 70% humidity, and just underneath it I'll run an Angolan setup running at 60% humidity. And I'll only do 2 things differently. Is I might change the substrate on the carpets, and not the carpets, in here is actually warmer. And in here I'll actually keep it on wood chips, because wood does tend to be a little bit more absorbent. And the problem with wood chips, when you do miss the system, wood and corn cob, we've got a whole talk about substrates. I'm personally not a fan of corn cob at all. It's a killer of snakes. But wood chips tend to mold, where cocoa husk is a little bit more tougher when it comes to getting moldy and becoming stale. And that's why it's always a good recommendation for a high humidity enclosure. So let's go through normal humidity substrates. The first and most popular, and I use it right throughout the snakes, except my extreme condition, super high humidity snakes, is wood chips. But with wood chips, you can use sand, you can use bark, paper toweling. Basically, all your general substrates that you get is on that mid-range humidity levels. You can even use cocoa peat, but then it's got to be dry. You don't need to mist it, you don't need to put it in water. Use it as is. If it looks aesthetically pleasing to you, you're more than welcome to use it. It will not create problems. But your high humidity substrates, you got to be a little bit more careful. Paper towels, I'm not a big fan of paper towels in high humidity setups, because I've noticed paper towels, the same problem with wood, it builds up mold extremely fast, especially if it starts getting wet. And when I've been by wet, you do get a water spill when you close the tap, or when you put a new water bowl in, you've overfilled it and a little bit of water spills. Just that water that spilled is enough to create mold, and 2-3 days later you'll be cleaning the whole setup all over again. If you've got a nice absorbent substrate in there that can actually handle that humidity, then it's just going to last you a lot longer. And substrates I'm a huge fan of for high humidity snakes is cocoa husk. I use it on the GTPs, the emeralds, everything, my Amazons. Everyone that's doing high humidity snakes will tell you that's the way to go. The ball python guys, you don't have to worry about cocoa husk or wood chips. This is the only aspect that will change humidity for a ball python. I'll go this way instead of this way. I don't even miss my ball pythons at all. I keep my ball pythons in tubs. They're loving life, and it's just the water bowls, the sizes that I actually determine the humidity. And just above my ball pythons, I actually got 2 younger Angolan pythons in there, and I just do this, just go smaller. Same tub, same setup, just lower humidity. This is what determines your humidity and the placement. So ball python, I'll have the water bowl at the back, or just extremely large one at the front, given I've got ample temperature to create some evaporation from my water. And yeah, but I keep both on wood chips. But if I was misting the snake, like I do with my Amazons in the racks, for example, then I would go cocoa. I would not go wood chips. Initially, when I got them, that's all I had was wood chips, and I knew I'm going to have to replace it later. And within a week, in the corners, I saw some mold growing up there. scraped it all out when my cocoa has arrived, chucked it in there, and it's been running flawlessly now for quite a while. So substrate is not the deal breaker when it comes to humidity, guys, and we tend to overthink it when it comes to humidity. Look at your snake, look at the condition. If they're eating, there's no bubbles forming on the belly from scale rot, no discoloration, and it's shedding perfectly, guys, you're doing it right. If it's not those factors, then you're doing something wrong, and then you can just fine tune it. But I always say that if it works, don't fix it. Don't overthink it, don't overcomplicate it. But if it's not working, do fine adjustments as you go along. I wouldn't jump from this to this immediately if I'm not 100% sure. I'll go in between, for example. So I'll start with this, and I'll see I've still got problem sheds. I'll go to a medium, and then I'll probably end up here and see where we're at then with the sheddings. And that's about it. There's humidity is actually a no-brainer, but it's one of those things we tend to overthink it, and we tend to try and we get paranoid about it, and we don't. Unless you live in an extreme arid environment or extreme high moisture environment, you're going to just have to consider the species you're keeping, if they will survive in your natural levels of humidity, and if not, what do I need to do to adjust it? For example, the horn vipers we've got here, I just said they don't do well here. They don't do well in a normal ventilated enclosure, so we actually use desert dens where the entire top is basically mesh. So any humidity building up in that enclosure escapes 100%. There's no residual humidity that's being kept back in that enclosure. Okay, guys, that's it. It's very plain and simple. So if you want to get high humidity, I always miss this. Guys, don't over mist. Just when I say, if you want to mist to keep your humidity up a little bit, if you mist once a week, then you're doing it right. One of the reviews, it's on our line down at the shows we've done. Ohana Exotics actually done one on a ReptiCube. The first feature he noticed about the ReptiCube is certain enclosures like your Exoterus, people love it for tropical species, but yet it's got a mesh top. So how do you keep that humidity in? So Exoterus is not ideal for high humidity snakes. So you need to convert that to a solid top, and now you're compromising ventilation, because part of the design is ventilation from the front on that rail out the top. And hot air rises with humidity, and it just poof goes out, and you're going to struggle. And one of the reviews we got on the ReptiCubes is he went down from misting every second to third day to once a week, and that was it. That was all that was required, and that's the ideal situation. Even these enclosures with the ventilation on the side, so it does get a proper draft, works fantastic. So if you're not looking at a ReptiCube, or you've got an existing enclosure, just make sure that your ventilation is enough to create a pull through on the ventilation. You want an inlet and an exhaust on an enclosure. You don't want a solid front or solid back ventilation, because if you blow into a bottle, what happens? You blow up yourself. But if I do put a hole at the back and I blow into that bottle, the air is going to pass through. The same principle comes with enclosures. You need the inlet and you need the exhaust ventilation. You can't have ventilation just in the front or just in the back. You're creating dormant air. Fish tanks, once again, I've done the talk on fish tanks. It's called fish tanks, not fish tanks / reptile tanks. That's the biggest killer of snakes in the sense of dormant air. It's an absolute nightmare. There's no ventilation in fish tanks. So don't go that route, guys. Okay. If there's anything that you feel I've missed, leave it in the comments and we'll discuss it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe our channel, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, guys, have a great day. Cheers.